I'm your host, Shawn Soole. Today, I've actually been on a roll. I've done 2 live streams this week. I'm going to do 2 next week. All of a sudden, the fire's been lit under my ass, and I'm like really getting to it, which is kind of nice because I was being a lazy ass for the last little bit, doing my usual edit privacies on Facebook so everybody can comment. I'm looking forward to this chat because I've always enjoyed Tim and the work he's done in Victoria. He's a fellow Australian, which I don't usually hang out with, but I actually can call this guy a friend. I don't usually like hanging out with Australians, and I think Tim feels relatively the same way. Why come all the way to Victoria and then hang out? That's why I didn't do Whistler. But we're going to chat about Citrus and Cane, his bar that opened up. I really want to get deep into that one because I know that it's one of the newest bars in Victoria that has got a lot of acclaim even during the pandemic, and then the recent lockdowns, which I think is a load of shit for a place like Citrus and Cane. But Tim, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So I do want to get into like the recent lockdowns because I use you as an example because you're basically a high-end sit-down tropical cocktail bar, and just because you don't have food, you can't be open. I look at Lucky and the Duke both spent a fortune on tables and chairs so everybody can be seated because you don't have that food element. It's just a little bit insane. But before we get into that, I want to know your origin story. How'd you get into bartending? What made you come to Canada? And how did you get to where you are? Because you've been in Victoria almost the same amount of time as I have, haven't you?
Yeah, 2009 I got here. Yeah, it's been a minute. Yeah, I mean, I finished school. I got into furniture. I worked furniture for years. I moved to the UK in 2007. Started working for a big Italian furniture company there. When the banks crashed, I lost my job and ended up basically just picking up other shifts. So I got back into bartending at that point. Prior to that, like I did some like worked at the Gabba. You know, if you remember that, you know, like you know, like working cricket games and football games and stuff with like these beer guns, which is like these like guns on a long hose, and it's just plastic cups. You just like, yeah, that was a crazy time. Anyway, so when I was in the UK, I needed to do something. I got back into bartending, enjoyed it. I started working for a brewery over there. They put me through like Cellarman's training and stuff, working with like cask ales, and then my visa ran out. I wasn't ready to go home. I had a friend coming to Canada. I was like, sure, fuck it, I'll come to Canada. Why not? This will be fun. And we spent a couple of weeks here in Victoria before moving to. We actually went to Golden, to Kicking Horse for the first season. And that 2 weeks that I was here in Victoria, I fell in love with the place. So as soon as summer rolled around, I came back to Vic. I worked at the Mint, and then proceeded to do the next couple of winters in Revelstoke, and always coming back to Victoria for the summers. And eventually, the last kind of summer I came back here, I started working with Spinnakers, and because I wanted to get back into craft beer, I wanted to get back into real cask ales and that real like English style beer that I'd been missing. And over the few years that I was there, they actually ended up sponsoring me to stay in the country, so I got my permanent residency, and from there, Northern Quarter and Smiths, and I don't know, all around. And then eventually, I started doing these pop-up tiki bars in the Copper Owl back in, what was this, 2019. And it was they gave me a random Tuesday night. Said, look, we don't have anything else going on. We're happy to try it out. At the time, the Copper Owl very much looked like a dark, like tiki bar. It was red carpet everywhere. The lighting was perfect. Everything about that place was perfect for it. And we we ended up doing four or five of those in the end. And they were hugely successful. The people came out on a Tuesday night, much to everyone's surprise. And probably mid 2019, the owner of the Copper Hour, Renee, pulled me aside and just said, I'm ready to walk away. She'd been doing it for 7 years and just wanted to pursue other avenues of her life and try something new. And it was important to her and Laurel Point, who were the owners at the time, that the bar transitioned into like something unique, something cool, I guess, something that they didn't want another sports bar. They didn't want another tap room. They wanted something with a bit more life and vibrancy. And we were the perfect fit. So we started the whole process of negotiations, and then eventually took the keys on January 2nd, 2020. We ran it as the Copper Hour for their final month in January, then closed February to start renovations, with the hope of being open April 1st. Funny date. I guess the joke was on us in the end, but yeah, we eventually did get open November 15th, 2020.
Yeah, because I remember like looking back now and visiting you there when you were doing the renovations and stuff, and it's hard to imagine walking up and with a coffee and like giving you a hug without a mask on, without anything, and then walking around the place. And now you're just like, you don't even shake hands, like, and there's masks and there's everything.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride.
What did you learn opening Citrus and Cane? Because I do champion you in the conversations that have been around tiki. I don't think it's really hit Canada per se yet, but it's definitely in the US. There's a lot of articles and stuff, and the correlation between pineapples, like I'm doing a rebranding job right now because the pineapple is a symbol of hospitality, but there's also conversations behind the pineapple symbol, and it's everything. But I've always said that I champion you because you really took those sort of conversations and molded it so that it wasn't kitschy tiki. It was very well thought out, tropical.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very like a conscious effort, you know, and like, and even when we were doing those pop-up tiki bars, like, you know, we even back then, like we weren't putting idols up on the walls. Like you know, I thought we were pretty conscious of it back then. Then when it came to actually opening the bar, I wanted to be part of like the new tiki, the modern tiki. I wanted to be part of like what this genre can be. And so like like I said, everything we do is conscious, but the main thing for us was I wanted to modernize the drinks. I wanted to modernize the room, and I wanted to do all of that while still paying homage to people like Trader Vic and Don Beach. And unfortunately, there is a horrible history with tiki and racism and oppression, and obviously rum carries a lot of the same baggage, and it was important for us to show that, like, you know, this can be better. You know, we can acknowledge what we did wrong, and we can move forward, because, you know, there was nothing wrong with the drinks. It was just a lot of the bullshit that went on around it. You know, but yeah, so we focused on the elements. We wanted to focus on escapism. You know, the Copper Hour, or what was Copper Hour, architecturally, that room is phenomenal. Like, no one builds bars like that anymore. And we just wanted to bring that back to life. We did a lot of restoration on the room. You know, we wanted to be, like I said, conscious about what we were putting out, but it was, you know, like, we wanted that room to feel like you weren't in Victoria anymore. We wanted it to feel like you could be sitting there having a drink and feel like you could be in any city in the world. Like, we could pick that bar up and put it in any city in the world and it wouldn't be out of place. You know, and I think we did a pretty good job of that. I mean, I still keep pineapples on the bar all the time. You know, I'm never going to escape pineapples, you know, but There are
Oh, you got to
definitely
use
some.
you got to use pineapples in the drinks. It's pineapple juice.
Yeah, and they look good on the bar. I like staring at pineapples while I'm making drinks. You know, calming.
What what drew you to like the tropical scene, the tiki scene? Like, what was the draw point? Because it is a niche of a niche. Like, we talk about high end cocktails and doing it well. Like, you can go one way with a lot of old school like 70s, 80s tiki drinks where they were like just tons of shitty syrups and overly sweet and stuff like that. And then the other side, which is like really in depth into that sort of conversations. Like, what drew you to that very, very small niche?
It started with the Shameful Tiki Lounge.
Mm.
A trip to Vancouver. I don't know, 6 years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago. It's a while. And my partner, Jessa, had booked us a couple of seats in this bar. I knew nothing about it. It was a total surprise. She had just heard that it was a cool room and something unique. And from the moment we set foot inside that door, I was done.
You were
Like
hooked.
I was out. Yeah. That was just it. There was like you walk off Main Street and you walk into this crazy room, you know, the decor and everything. And we sat down, and before we'd even ordered a drink, another table had ordered a mystery bowl, which comes with the full song and dance. There's smoke machine, the lights change, there's music's changing, the staff are all chanting. Like, I was gone. And from that moment on, it became an obsession. You know, I mean, obviously growing up in Australia, like, and especially Queensland, like, we drink rum, you know, not great rum, but we we were,
It's got
at
better.
least back then. Yeah. Like, I mean, you know, early 2000s, like it wasn't the
No.
best, but it was, you know, and there was something to that for me. I'd spent years going through the beer industry, and I'd spent years going through like Scotch Malt Whisky Society, and like, and I don't know, there was maybe something with the timing. I love the concept of that escapism and that room and the theatrics behind it, and then the drinks. Like, I started exploring rum again, and just kind of fell head over heels into it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we were talking about during the pandemic, and we've sort of chatted briefly and that sort of thing. But what were the pros to opening during, like, renovating during that time? Because I know that when you put yourself on a hard deadline to open, like you said, April 1st, it's a very short time to like source tables and chairs and tools and all this sort of stuff. And I know we were joking because it was like, there is some pros to like having to be forced to draw it out.
Yeah. I mean, I've always said it's weird talking about the benefits of COVID, but we experienced a lot of them. I mean, because we were seeing restrictions before we'd finished the room, it allowed us to actually redesign the room. So our table layouts changed. We were originally looking at banquette seating, which we moved against, and we also were forced to open with reduced capacities. We were forced to open with reduced hours. We had all these like kind of guidelines in play that we thought were going to hinder us a lot. But what we learned is that it was much to the opposite. That you know, we worked hard to get two people behind that bar at all times, as tight as it is. And with the reduced capacity, that's almost all we can really keep up with. You know, the drinks are intricate. There's a lot of steps. As much as we can pre-batch, or, you know, as much of the liquor as we want, it's there's still a lot of work. We also learned that our ice machine couldn't keep up. You know, there's a few things like that. And like having the shorter shifts and stuff like that, it kind of allowed us to really understand a service, understand like how the room moved, how, the kind of flow of it. But yeah, I mean, for the longest time, we didn't even think we were going to be able to open. We're a liquor primary without food, so we were on the nightclub list. We were stage 4 at the start there, I think by the time we hit, I think it was like beginning of November, they actually announced that like lounge bars could open, which is what we'd planned to be the whole time. Like we always wanted to be a seated cocktail bar. But yeah, there's a few things like that we look at now as like even when we were allowed to drastically increase our capacity and when we could extend our hours and do all of that, we made the conscious choice we only added a few extra chairs. I think we added 1, maybe 2 extra tables. We still kept everything like distance and lower capacities, and the room just feels more comfortable that way. Whereas initially, like we would have tried to cram 120 people into that room. Like we would have thrown caution to the wind and just gone for it, and it probably would have failed dismally in that first couple. We would have learned a lot of lessons in that first couple of weeks if it wasn't for someone else kind of like pulling us back a little bit.
Well, I think anyone who's opened a place, like for the listeners at home, your bar is, and you can't rip that thing out, obviously. You just have to work with what you got. And it's an oval that is an oval on the inside as well. Like a lot of bars, when they build ovals, they're square on the inside. So you have hard edges and you can do that. And I remember us talking about literally getting cardboard cutouts and getting the curve right. So the stainless steel would be curved. So you could have 2 bartenders behind there. But I think anybody who's opened up a bar or a restaurant, you can put together a really epic cocktail menu, but until you're in the shit, like on a Friday night at 9 p.m., you have no idea how that's going to roll out. Like you have no idea. Like we've been crazy at Clyde's. We've done 50 cocktails on the menu, which is just insane to think. But the lads said they could keep up, so I put 50 cocktails on the menu because they said they wanted to. So, but it's a nice mix of like cocktails on tap and highballs and stuff like that. But what were the, like, obviously we were talking about government assistance in the green room before. And I've talked to a couple of businesses, distilleries, wineries, a couple of cafes and stuff that were too new to get assistance in the very, very, very beginning. Because obviously the government's chasing, like, how are you going to get this money back? And is it just a ruse? Because if you registered your business in January of 2019, not knowing what was going to happen in March, the government's like, well, that could have been a bit shady. What was your experience when it came to government assistance when the pandemic first started?
Slow, very slow. I mean, it was frustrating because we had bought an existing bar, but we incorporated when we took over, which erased any tax information from the previous bar, basically. So it essentially set us up as a brand new enterprise. So when the initial loans came out, they were we weren't eligible for anything. It was I don't know, maybe a couple of months after all of that before they announced the RRF loan, which was kind of similar. It was designed for new businesses, for startups, for people like us, basically. The application process was far more rigorous, and it was far more detailed. You're really opening your entire business plan and everything up to the government to scrutinize and rip apart. I kind of thankfully, like I had done a very like detailed business plan before doing all of this. It was kind of nice to have that stuff for the government. But yeah, the loans weren't set amounts. It was kind of like you show them your forecasts, you show them how you think those forecasts are realistic, and then they decide whether or not the amount of money you're asking for is the amount they want to give you, and you kind of go from there. And then obviously we saw circuit breaker loans or the grants and the most recent grants and stuff as well. But I mean, even those, like, nothing in government moves quick. So, when you've been closed for 2 months for a circuit breaker, and the grant you're getting to help pay for, your bills, your insurance, your rent, everything that adds up doesn't show up until after you've already opened your doors again.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, thanks. I don't know.
Well, and it's just projections. Like, how do you project anything that's going to happen? Like, I remember we do our budgets once a year in like March, and I swore that by September last year the pandemic would be over and we'd be back to normal business. And so my January, February, March projected sales are significantly higher than what we're actually doing right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's like you said, you can't forecast a pandemic. Like we've seen so many waves. Like it's challenging, but thankfully, we had done the planning before the opening, and I think the government was just happy to, whoever it was that judged our case, seemed happy to just, at least we've thought about it. That was enough for them, whether we were right or not. It's at least we've done some work towards it. But I don't know. I mean, they, in the end, like don't get me wrong, they have been massive helps to us. I've always said that those government programs and those grants, them and the fact that we didn't have a kitchen, as weird as that sounds, are probably the two things that allowed us to survive. Like without the overheads of the kitchen, without the wastage and the uncertainty, and like speaking to a lot of my friends in restaurants, just talking about like, it's great we can be open and we're buying all this stuff in case people show up, but then they don't show up. It's like, at least we're in a point where it's like, okay, so I might have lost a few lemons and limes, but I haven't, I'm not throwing away hundreds of dollars of food. Yeah,
I felt the same way at FTW because we didn't have food. It's just when you really start looking at figures and dollars and bottom line, you're just like, fuck, why doesn't everybody just have a liquor primary license and not bother doing food? Because you make way better money. And that expense is absolutely huge.
Well, it's just nice not having perishables, right? Like when your perishables are only worth a couple $100, it's like it makes the, it takes a lot of the like chance out of it. It's like if you suddenly have a super slow Friday night for whatever reason, you haven't really lost anything. Not enough to worry about. So
to waste $1,000 worth of product next week. Okay, well this is one that I'm gonna, because this conversation this is a perfect segue, because you have this understated positivity. You're an understated dude to start with, but you have this understated positivity. Like, you could be kicking and screaming and fucking and shitting and like dropping the F-bombs as much as you want, but you have this understated positivity. And how do you keep that positivity? Because I'm sure there's a lot of entrepreneurs and hospitality entrepreneurs, particular operators, that are out there right now trying to stay positive. And even for myself, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but how do you stay positive and keep pushing forward?
I don't know. There's probably multiple aspects of my life that contribute to that. I'm in an incredible partner is a great first step. Like we've been through thick and thin with this stuff and with the bar, and taking time for myself, like things like exercise and yoga, and like just keeping, trying to keep my mental health side of things positive. And it's always like, I think you get back what you put out, and if all you do is focus on what's wrong and what don't I have, you're only going to get that same negativity back. I prefer to look at things as like, well, what do I have? What's going right here? What's the, like always looking for the positives. I don't know. It's I don't know where that comes from. Maybe it's from my parents. I don't know. Maybe it's from, when, I don't know, when you don't grow up with everything, you really appreciate the things you do have.
Yep.
And it's, I don't know. It's, yeah.
It was way more
I've
zen.
heard that. I've heard that a bit.
It's way more zen and philosophical than I was expecting, because like I know that during the pandemic I would drop you text messages or a phone call and say, how you doing, buddy, just to check in, especially with closures and stuff like that. And the recent closure was a little bit of a joke, but and you'd always be upbeat. I'm like, fuck you, man. Like I want that upbeat feel. Like I'm stressed. But let's get into
it's not like I'm not carrying stress. Like it's it's just I don't know. I can't fully explain how I process those things. But I think it's, I don't know. I don't know.
So I do find it funny, this recent lockdown, because for us at Clive's, like that Wednesday when that was announced, I was getting multiple text messages from people saying, sorry about Clive's having to shut down, da 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 da. And that Christmas week, because we're usually open Christmas Day because we're the hotel and everything, our top line revenue is definitely reduced in comparison to the usual previous history of months. But the recent, I find it do funny. It's a massive gray area, and I hope that they pull it really shortly. And I said to you in the green room, that citrus and cane is like my benchmark for when I start talking about this sort of stupid gray area of these lockdowns. And this one particularly, where it says bars and nightclubs. And because you're a bar, liquor, primary, no food, you can't technically be open. Although you can put a food truck in your parking lot, and apparently that's okay, which I don't also understand. Like, have you thought about it?
Yeah.
Have you considered putting a food truck?
Of course we have. Yeah. We've run through all the scenarios. What would if we skip the dishes icon, QR code or something on a table, if we put a food truck, like it's where to start? It's insulting. It's insulting at best. The food element it doesn't make us safer, like straight off the bat. We are, for those that have no idea who I am, where I'm from, which is probably most people, the bar itself, we have an entrance downstairs. It's a small room. We have a doorman there. He does all the QR codes and IDs and everything. And then you wait there. You wait with our doorman until one of our staff will come downstairs. They will greet you, bring you up to the room, seat you at a table, and then it's full table service. Our service style is the equivalent to like a high-end restaurant-ish. A little more casual, obviously, but so like the thought that somehow having food as an option makes our environment any safer is insane to me. Like, I would argue our operation has been safer than probably the vast majority of businesses in this city since the start of the pandemic. So like, we put a food truck outside, so then people have to walk around the room, walk outside, go get food, bring it back in. Our tables are small. You can barely fit all the glassware on. Like we're a cocktail bar. Nothing is designed for food. We don't have cutlery. We don't have the garbage disposal. We don't, like we're talking about extra staff to put on to try and accommodate something that like, we also, like there's no margin in it.
Yeah.
Like it's not like we can suddenly put our own margin on all this food. Like that would be insane. So none of it makes any sense. But at the end of the day, it's, again, like,
understated positivity.
well, I mean, these are things that are out of our control, right?
Yes.
Like I can yell and scream and punch holes in a wall and do all that stuff, but it gets me where? Like it gets me nowhere. It's wasted energy, Instead, like let's look at what we can be doing instead. Like we know we've got X amount of time now. Hopefully, I mean, gyms are open. Like we've got to be opening after the 16th. Touch wood somewhere. So like at this point, it's like, well, instead of worrying about that, let's focus on our menu. Let's look at the drinks. Let's put some new drinks out. Let's, think about what else we want to change in the room to make this entire experience better for everyone else. let's shift the focus a little bit, because I can't control what the province does. So there's no point me wasting energy on it.
Yeah, I've been deep diving on like new marketing initiatives and parties and special tasting events and clubs and all this sort of stuff, new coasters and postcards and stuff like that. Like I
Focus
do
on
agree
making your business better.
Like, so I do agree that like training and that sort of stuff is a big one. My funniest one out of the recent like gray area was, if you're a food primary that serves tapas or small plates, you're okay. But if you're a liquor primary that serves tapas and small plates, you could get in trouble. Like, I'm like, but what's the difference? If I go to Bodega or if I go to Clive's, pretty much serving the same style of food, just one's food primary, one's liquor primary. But it is. I am looking forward to the future. As we've talked about positivity, I've tried to stay positive for the last 2 years of the pandemic, and I'm trying to be a good little soldier. And like, I think that everything is going to be good for the overall industry and the overall people and stuff like that, and hospitals and frontline workers. But there's some points where I'm just like, come on, can I just get a break? Can we just like get a break and like move forward?
Yeah. It's I mean, like my partner and I, like Jester and I, we talk all the time about like, fuck, bar number 2's got to be easy, like compared to this. Like if we can survive all of this bullshit, like we're, I don't know, I shouldn't say that, but yeah,
you're going to be mentally set up to be able to like, it's sort of like being held back, and then when you get let go, you're ready to go. Like, and it's like full on.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, this has been one crazy roller coaster ride. Beyond the pandemic, just the changes with the property and like the city in general, and like just worrying about our staff. Like how's our team doing? Like that's and we are incredibly grateful for the crew that we have. Like they've all stuck with us the entire time. They have all been huge supporters of us, which again, like that customer experience becomes better because of that. Like the biggest fear every time we have these shutdowns. I mean, we joke that this is like this will be the 3rd time we've opened a bar. Like, because essentially, like, you lose all your momentum, you shut down for 2 weeks, and then, or 2 months, sorry, and then you open a new bar all over again. You go through the same bullshit and rigmarole. And it's like our biggest concern has always been like, how are those guys doing? Are they paying their rents? Are they putting food on their table? Like it's, thankfully they've all survived. They've all stuck with us and supported us, and hopefully they'll all be there again when we open in theory mid-February.
Do you think that the transparency and honesty when it comes to operators, because like I'm lucky that I've got my team as well over at Clive's, and I've had them from anywhere from 8 to 14 months sort of deal, when a lot of venues, as always, like lost all their staff, closed down, all the staff like jump ship, and they don't come back, or they do come back but you only get like 10%. Do you think that your honesty and transparency with your team and like having the empathy to check in with them has been the greatest strength in keeping your staff engaged? Because I think that's always the hard thing. A lot of operators, as soon as you get closed down, go into your little like narrow box and start focusing on all the stuff you got to do. But then you're not understanding that, like, if you don't talk to your staff for 2 months, what are you expecting them to come back to? Like, and I've heard a lot of people like, I got let go and then I didn't hear from my manager or my boss for 3 months. And then he texts me, he's like, can you start on Saturday? And you're like, no, fuck off. Do you think that the key to the way you've kept your staff is that sort of mentality?
Yeah, it's I don't know if you remember this or not, but there was an advertising campaign in Australia decades ago. This maybe goes back to the 90s, maybe early 2000s, that says a puppy's not just for Christmas. And it was the RSPCA pointing out that like if you buy a dog, you have that responsibility to keep that dog alive and keep it safe. And that's it's a weird, maybe a weird tagline to have like carried throughout my entire life, but it's something that I find myself subconsciously referring to a lot. You know, and I look at the bar in the same light as like we opened a bar and we took on a major responsibility when we did that. You know, we took on the responsibility for all of our crew, you know, for their ability to pay their rents and survive in an expensive city. You know, and it's been important to us to take that seriously. You know, like it's, you know, this isn't just about me. You know, like the bar is bigger than me. You know, and we wanted to really focus on a staff culture. We wanted the staff to understand that they're not just another, you know, cog in the machine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that they're important to us. That they are the lifeline. They're the blood of the business. You know, and it's I think we wanted to make sure that they understood that. You know, and so even at times like this, you know, we try and reach out to them and just say, like, look, we're going to be at the bar this afternoon. If anyone wants to just stop by, have a chat, catch up, you know, like come in, check in with us. Like, let's see where everyone's at, you know, like let's grab a burrito. Like, I don't know. It's just, I think that stuff's important. Like staff culture is huge. Like if you talk to any operator, they will say that staff culture is huge. And again, you get back what you put out. You know, and like if you don't give a shit about your staff aren't going to give a shit about you, and that's fair. Like I've been in those environments before, and they're horrible, they're toxic.
Yeah.
You know, like Jessa and I looked at all the jobs that we've hated, and or all the places that we've worked where we're like, oh, you know, that really wasn't dealt with well. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
all right, let's learn from that. Like what do we hate about that scenario, and how can we not replicate it? How can we do it better? How can we be more conscious and I don't know, more present?
Yeah, I've been trying to champion the 4-day week. It's been a big one because
Oh, dude.
Clives is busy. You work an 8-hour bar shift. It's a lot.
Yep.
4-day week.
Yeah.
And my
Yeah.
youngsters, obviously, they're hungry and they're like, oh, I want to work more. And I'm like, no, just you don't want to end up like me at 41, burnt out and crabby and bitter and angry.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a big thing. And I think coming out of the pandemic, I think there's a few operators out there that haven't taken this on board and haven't seen the fragility of our industry and the people that we have in this industry. I had a big Facebook like thing on the Victoria I Got Your Back hospitality page today about like someone complaining about having to pay sick days now. I'm like, but every other industry does. Like, I don't understand why you're upset about it. Like, we're the only industry that we don't give these things to people. Like, we don't talk to, like,
we don't look after people.
No, we're a turn
You
and
know?
burn. It's a turn and burn mentality.
Yeah. And again, like that's you know, these are things we're trying to address. You know, like we've acknowledged that minimum wage is just not sufficient. You know, so we pay above. You know, like we're only a year in, but we already have plans to kind of offer more for the staff. You know, like it's I guess there's a lot to be said about it all, but yeah, you're right. If you can't see the importance of looking after your crew, your team, then they're never going to see the importance of looking after you. You know, and as soon as things fall apart, they will jump ship. They will run away. You know, as soon as someone comes in and offers them $1 more an hour, they're gone. You know, like there's no loyalty there. You know,
and retention is cheaper than retraining, always.
Yeah.
Especially in a place like yours where you're like, okay, so now you need to learn all these tiki drinks.
Yeah.
And all these tropical drinks.
Yeah. And that's like, but again, like that's huge. Like if you ask one of our staff about any of the cocktails on the menu, they're going to give you a full rundown about it. You know, like we do rum training. Like you know, like you're right. Like retraining staff is expensive. It's time consuming, you know, and it's challenging, especially in an industry where people are just expected to be on. You know, like you might have only been in a job for 2 days, but you know, you're expected to already know everything, you know, and it's challenging.
So I don't want to take up too much of your time, and we did get started late. So future plans in 2022. I know we've talked about opening 5 more bars and that sort of thing. What is your
I'm gonna take over this city.
I'm sure there's going to be places on the market fairly shortly, but as it is, like, looking forward, and I know it's always hard. Like, if you asked the same question this time last year, you'd be like, everything's going to be back to normal in September, and we're here in January. What is your immediate plans for the next, like, 11 months for the bar, for yourself, for everything?
I mean, the immediate plan for us is to just keep doing what we're doing. You know, it's refinement, it's education, it's you know, we spend a lot of time looking at old tiki recipes, and most of them are terrible. Like, they're just horrible drinks. Like, they're so unbalanced. They're full of shitty ingredients. Like, so we spend a lot of time like ripping them apart and rebuilding them. You know, and again, it's in this vein of like modernizing tiki. You know, like, you know, let's find better rums. Let's find better fruits or more interesting stuff. So it's, for us, is like, we're focusing on some rum training with the staff. We want to focus on those drinks and really nailing that in. Focusing on service. There's still some things in the room that we're in the process of upgrading, and you know, we've been trying to get our bathrooms done for the longest, since day one. You know, upgrading ice machines, all that kind of stuff. So there's a bunch of like small things that we'll just keep ticking off, but the most part for us is we just want to build a fun space, and we want to continue doing that. We want people to come down and have fun and enjoy it, and you know, we can keep making happy customers. That's kind of all we care about at this point.
Talking about modernizing tiki, I remember I did a tiki competition at the London Bar Show like a decade ago, and Ian Burrell was one of the judges. And I did one of my tiki drinks from Clive's back in the day, which is why I don't do tiki anymore, because I just send people your way. Like, oh, you're going to do the tiki bowls this year? I'm like, no, go to Tim's place. Go away. But I did something with like hibiscus, and it was like a Sorrel rum punch sort of deal. And I remember that Salvatore Calabrese really loved it, but Ian Burrell was like, this is not sweet enough. I'm like, but it's balanced, right? He's like, yes, it's balanced. It's just not sweet enough. I'm like, so ergo all tiki drinks have to be sweet? And he's like, yes. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, it should be balanced. It should not be cloyingly sweet on your palate.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, if you're gonna, like, what's the point in putting 10 ingredients in a drink if you can't taste them? You know, like, what I've found with a lot of those old recipes is they're either cloyingly sweet, or they are like full heartburn acid, like, you know, 2 ounces of lemon juice kind of thing. You're just like, who the fuck wants 2 ounces of lemon juice in anything? Like,
with 5 ounces of different styles of rum, like,
yeah, like, they become these like hot messes of just keep adding another ingredient, and hopefully that will balance out the last thing you put in there. Like, yeah, I mean, it's Ian Burrell is I mean, the guy is an icon of the rum industry.
Yeah.
You know, sadly, we are not going to see Equiano, his collaboration with Foursquare here in BC. For the listeners at home, you can get it in other provinces, but just not here, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, like, he's got a point almost. You know, like, I don't think we should be shying away from sweet, but we should always be looking for balance in our drinks. You know, regardless of their style. You know, like, I make drinks that I like to drink. You know, like, if you don't like the things I like, then you probably won't like the drinks. I don't know.
Oh, exactly. Like, someone sits at the bar and they're like, what do you like to drink? I'm like, I drink Negronis like water. You know, like, if I want to get really crazy, I'm going to have a Toronto. Do you like bitter? No, I hate bitter. Okay, so you're not going to like the drinks I drink. Like,
Yeah, I think it's, for me, like it's less about how sweet or acidic a drink is, and my focus is more on like, well, look, if we're going to use sugar, let's use a good quality, let's use raw sugar. Let's use better quality products, less chemicals, less bullshit, like we make everything in house for that reason. I will never buy bottled Falernum or Orgeat. Like it makes me kind of cringe a little bit every time I taste it. Well, I mean, you can taste it straight away, right? So, it's like, it's just, yeah, I'm not afraid. I mean, we sell 1,000 pina coladas every week. Like I'm good with sweet, but I want the right sweet. I want like less refined sweet. If that makes sense.
Makes sense. That makes sense. I'm gonna have to try and hit you up for your Orgeat recipe, because I was doing cheetah Orgeat last year for my Mai Tai slushy, purely because every batch needed like 2.5 liters of Orgeat per batch. So it's just an exorbitant amount of Orgeat to like buy in, but I was just making it from scratch every single day, or every single time I need to do a new batch. So I'll have to get your recipe. I've got a lot of advice off you today, but let's finish this up with what's your one piece of advice for a hospitality entrepreneur who is looking at opening a bar? Because I think that passion, that drive to open your own place is still not going to. It may have been a little bit muted for a lot of the younger generation due to the pandemic. But as someone who's done it through the pandemic, what's your one piece of advice for someone who's like, you know what, I still want to own my own bar or my own restaurant?
I mean, do it. Like if the pandemic is what scares you away from opening a bar or restaurant, then your concept wasn't finished. You shouldn't be that easily scared. I know that sounds arrogant, and that's probably a shitty thing to say, but it's like, whenever you're opening a business, you've got to be fearless. Like you're putting everything out there. Like you're putting your heart and soul out to the city to be judged. Like there are going to be hiccups, there are going to be challenges. Yes, right now we're seeing a pandemic is a pretty fucking big challenge. But at the same time, it's like it shouldn't kill the industry, and it shouldn't kill your passion for wanting to do it. I will say, don't just rush into the first thing that comes your way. Like I get the excitement, and I came really close myself to jumping into a scenario that these days I look back and go, thank fuck I didn't. And I think, like, be patient. The right thing will come along. Just put your head down, do the work, and when it comes, you'll know.
Nice. That was a bit of a mic drop there. For the last thing for everybody, tell the address of Citrus and Cane and social media and whatnot.
Social media is citrusandcane.com's website. Our Instagram, Facebook is all at Citrus and Cane. You can find us on there. I don't know. Any questions, you can email us. Like, website's got everything. Our menus and everything are up on the website, but anyone wants to check it out. Yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it. That was awesome. That was awesome.
It was fun. It's nice chatting.
Okay, well, I'll see you at the bar fairly shortly, now that you don't have to work nights, and I don't work nights, so you should just come down and hang out with me on a Friday afternoon and have Negronis.
Yeah, I'll come give Harry a hard time again.
Okay, my friend. I'll see you real soon.
Sweet. Thanks, Shawn.
Thanks a lot, buddy.